Greetings, friends, fellow patriots, fellow citizens, and welcome to this week's edition of the We the People Convention Weekly News and Opinion Podcast. My name is Tom Zawistowski, and I'm the host of this podcast. I'm the president of the We the People Convention organization. And I'm so glad that you chose to take your time to join us for this week's conversation about the news that affects your individual freedom, liberty, and prosperity. That's what this podcast is about. And it is brought to you, this podcast is paid for as well as our website, our text messages, our emails, our social media, and our donations to many other conservative organizations around the nation are brought to you by the donors, the generous donors to the We the People Convention. And if you have the means to support our cause and our efforts, which have been quite successful to protect and defend your and my individual freedom, liberty, and prosperity, please go to wethepeopleconvention.org, and right on the front page, there's a donate link, and give what you can. But most of all, if you can, give a recurring monthly donation of even $5, $10, $25, $50, $100 a month. That really helps with our cash flow. So thank you to our donors, many of them who have been giving to us for the 16 years we've been in existence. Thank you to you, but also thank you to the new donors who are coming online that we are now reaching through YouTube, Facebook, and TikTok, which has been quite a ride, which I'll mention a little later about how successful we've been there. So welcome to this week's podcast. We're very glad to have you. And there are very significant things happening. And as I've expressed to many of you for years and years, we are not spectators. We are participants. We, the people, play a role in how our country functions, how it runs. And those of us in the Tea Party movement have spent 16 years fighting to restore our nation, fighting to restore our Constitution, fighting to restore the rule of law. And boy, this week, we started to see some real returns on that investment. And it started, what I mentioned last week, with Tulsi Gabbard basically releasing documents that she uncovered in the CIA that show that Barack Obama ordered that falsification of the Trump-Russia collusion hoax, that it came right from President Obama, and Clapper and Comey and all the rest of them followed along and executed this horrific plan that has done what? They tried to keep Donald Trump from being elected. Then they tried to destroy his presidency. And in fact, they did destroy his first presidency. Then they worked to rig the 2020 election. And then they installed Joe Biden so that Barack Obama, who's the only president ever in history to stay in Washington after he was unelected, to do what? To run the Biden presidency. Joe Biden wasn't running anything. All the people that were under Biden were Obama people, and he was directing them. This is a criminal conspiracy. It is a treasonous coup. And you heard Tulsi Gabbard explain that last week in the clip I showed you. But this week, I posted her press conference. It's in our, on wethepeopleconvention.org. You need to watch this and share it. It's 50 minutes long, but it's the receipts. These are not allegations. This is proof, and it's serious. And so, we have to, it is our job, and I'm going to talk to you a lot about our job, to make sure your fellow citizens see this, okay? DNI Tulsi Gabbard lays out the evidence she has turned over to the Department of Justice concerning former President Barack Obama's role in trying to influence the 2016 election, and then not trying, but actually undermining the Trump administration by promoting the provable lie that Russia hacked the 2016 election in order to get President Trump elected, which was the basis for the impeachment and the Mueller investigation, which proved it was totally false. But now we know it's even worse. It wasn't just false, the accusations, Trump colluded with Russia. The CIA and the FBI and those people had documents that proved that was not true. And then they manufactured the lie intentionally to destroy President Trump's presidency. And we haven't even started, folks. We haven't even started investigating the 2020 election. Okay? Remember that. This is about way more than that. And I'm gonna bring some receipts on that. But this has resulted in the Justice Department launching a strike force to investigate Russia collusion evidence. The Department of Justice is proud to work with my friend Director Gabbard, and we are grateful for her partnership in delivering accountability for the American people, Attorney General Pam Bondi said in a statement. We will investigate these troubling disclosures fully and leave no stone unturned to deliver justice. The Justice Department on Wednesday announced the creation of a strike force that will assess evidence released by DNI Tulsi Gabbard related to the Russian election interference hopes. The Senate has now called for what I think has to happen, which is a special counsel. This is too big for the DOJ. You need a completely separate special counsel, just like the Mueller investigation, to go through everything and bring charges and against all the people who were involved. And it's not just Obama and Comey and Brennan. There are hundreds of people involved in this, all the way up and through the Biden administration. That's why I don't think the statute of limitations is going to be an issue here. This is an ongoing, continuing coup. It's going on right now. Okay? And so we've got to prosecute and go after this. And so again, when I said it's not just about the Russia from the fact that Obama and these guys created it and leaked it to the media, but it goes back to new documents. Obama pressured Comey to cover up the Clinton email scandal. Now you and I go, oh wow, yeah, that's like news, but to most Americans, that is news. But the difference is, while we knew it back then and we screamed loudly that Comey covered it up, now there's evidence. The then FBI Director James Comey, then Deputy FBI Director Andrew McCabe, former FBI Special Agent Peter Strzok, and others were pushed to not fully investigate the available evidence related to Clinton's misconduct. The deep state's corrupt foundation is crumbling as its political allegiance to former President Barack Obama is being exposed through waves of declassified documents. The newly declassified Clinton Annex, which was this file of documents in the CIA that previously were not disclosed, shows that how the FBI, under the direction of James Comey, failed to fully investigate Hillary Clinton's use of private email server and mishandling of highly classified information when she was Secretary of State. It also discusses intelligence reports alleging that high-level Obama administrative officials protected Clinton's 2016 campaign for president. Senate Judiciary Committee Chuck Grassley, Republican from Iowa, said Monday that the Clinton Annex is an appendix to a June 2018 report by the Department of Justice Office Inspector General that reviewed how the DOJ and FBI conducted the investigation on Clinton. This document shows an extreme lack of effort and due diligence in the FBI's investigation of former Secretary Clinton's email usage and mishandling of highly classified information, Grassley said. Under Comey's leadership, the FBI failed to perform fundamental investigative work and left key pieces of evidence on the cutting room floor. For instance, there were, I think it was 8 thumb drives with evidence about Clinton's having classified documents on her email servers. The FBI didn't even look at 5 of them. Didn't look at 5 of them, okay? So I think you're getting the scope of this, but it is important that you and I get this out, because as you're going to hear next from Molly Hemingway, there is a full court press to do Russia all over again. Nothing to see here. Oh, this isn't new evidence. Oh, this isn't even evidence. It's outrageous. And it's up to you and I to defeat this propaganda, this lie. Listen to what Molly Hemingway says. And this link will be on our podcast page for you to share with everyone. Listen to this.
Well, what happened when you go back to 2016 is the Obama administration hid intelligence showing that Russia's meddling in the 2016 election was no big deal. They suppressed that because they didn't want Donald Trump to know about it. Then they immediately began leaking to the Washington Post and to the New York Times false things that weren't true, the opposite, that Russia had conspired with Trump to steal the election. And the Washington Post and New York Times, when they were asked to publish these things that were not true, they just went ahead and did it. They took the word of John Brennan and other sources like that who had made these false claims. Then the Obama administration manufactures a completely fake intelligence assessment, again with this claim that Russia had conspired with Trump to steal the election, and they leaked that to the media as well. Well, when they were receiving these leaks, the media did whatever these people wanted. They pushed this absolutely delusional conspiracy theory for years. And now that we know that, and it was a fake story, now that we know the real story, and the real story is shocking, the Obama administration suppressed real intelligence, and then they manufactured fake intelligence for the purpose of undermining a legitimately elected administration. The media are hiding it. And why? Because they were complicit in the crimes that were committed. They can't very well report what actually happened because the whole conspiracy would have gone nowhere if the media hadn't been so willing to just republish these lies from Obama officials.
And to your point on the media wanting to hide it, they're essentially now saying, hold on, let's pump the brakes here. There's nothing to see. We got to vet all this information. Here's a little compilation of what we've heard in recent days. Take a listen.
They are quibbling, angels dancing on the head of a pin when we have volumes of reporting. You're always going to find one report that's different. Okay, whatever.
This was in no way verified. We have no idea. I mean, this is hardly information that we should even be repeating.
And Tulsi Gabbard, you are the winner of actually meeting the lowest of low expectations that were laid out for you.
So, Molly, back then they jumped all over the Steele dossier and those initial allegations. Now they're essentially saying, hold on, we got to check this. We got to vet it out. We shouldn't even have this on our air right now. Your thoughts?
Well, Bill, and those examples you just showed completely prove the point. All three of those individuals were complicit in this Russia collusion hoax, this dangerous conspiracy theory that was perpetuated against America. They were pushing it in real time. And they're lying when they say that this is just quibbling about things. The information that was released by Tulsi Gabbard shows that career officials in our intelligence agencies were screaming from the rooftops that what Obama and Bannon and Comey were doing wasn't true. And they have the emails and the documents showing that. I have reporting at the Federalist that I did this week showing what some career officials said when Bannon tried to say falsely that Russia was trying to help Trump, or when Comey falsely tried to include that made-up dossier. The actual officials were saying, this isn't real. Like this cannot meet the standards that we have. And so when these people say that it's no big deal, they're lying. It actually is a massive deal. And the only way they can survive is by hiding the actual information that was released. And it's important for America that that not happen, because this crime that was committed was a very serious one against the American people. And it cannot just be brushed under the rug.
Okay. What she said at the end is your call to action. We cannot allow them to cover this up. We cannot allow the lies to live. Therefore, you, everyone watching this podcast, needs to share that video. Remember, the people who are saying there's nothing to see here won Pulitzer Prizes for reporting lies. They haven't given them back. Even after the Mueller investigation said all that stuff you reported were lies, they didn't give him back. Now we've got even more proof, and they're saying, oh, nothing. CNN literally cut away from Tulsi Gabbard's press conference saying, we don't think this should even be aired. What? Oh, you stupid people on the left, don't see this. Close your eyes. Oh, we don't want you to know this because it will expose that we lied to you. Remember last week when I reported 60% of freaking dumb Democrats believe that Trump colluded with Russia, that Russia won the 2016 election for him. Zero evidence. We have the proof now. The CIA, the FBI said there is no evidence. They want to deny it. You cannot allow that. You need to share this with all those friends, relatives, church members, whatever, who don't want to hear you. La, 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 la. I can't hear you. Shove it towards them. Text it to them. Get it to them somehow. Put it on social media. You cannot allow them to do this again. And I'm going to talk to you about their strategy and what they're doing. And you're going to have to defeat this. So also on our website in the video section, you will see Steve Bannon and Mike Flynn, General Mike Flynn, reacting as soon as Gabbard put this out. And this is a great little video for you to watch. It's from, the War Room, podcast. And you want to check that out at We the People Convention in the video section. But I'm going to play a clip from Mike Flynn when he's talking to Betty Johnson that kind of captures how serious General Flynn thinks this is. Listen up.
Just as was done to President Trump when they raided his home at Mar-a-Lago, because they thought that they planted evidence there in that case. But I do think that what the DOJ should be considering, if not getting ready to conduct, is a raid of Barack Obama's home up there at Kalorama in Washington D.C., where he's been since he physically left the White House. He's been running the White House, all during the Biden regime. And I do think that there's some other places that need to be raided where there are likely, a lot of evidence, a lot of receipts, so to speak, in many of these people that are part of the Obama White House, as well as the Biden White House. I mean, I just heard the great David Schoen talking about the former Deputy Attorney General Monaco, who also was the Homeland Security Advisor to Barack Obama. So that's number one. Those are things that need to be considered right now. And I was ready to wake up this morning to hear about some of these raids that should have been going on. There should, as a minimum, be a task force assembled by of federal law enforcement authorities, as well as a assigned, dedicated, prosecutor at the DOJ level, at the Attorney General level, someone who is working directly for her and for the President of the United States. This has got to happen very quickly.
So we did announce that the DOJ has formed a task force, and that's good. But Mark Halperin, I think it was on with Charlie Kirk this week, and he said something that I want to share with you because I'm concerned about how we're doing this. And he told Charlie Kirk, he says, I got no problem with these investigations. I just don't like how it's being done. And Charlie Kirk said, well, how would you want it done? And he said, the way this should work is when Tulsi Gabbard found this, she shouldn't have held the press conference. We shouldn't know anything about this right now. It should have gone to the DOJ. Pam Bondi should have formed a special task force. They should have investigated that and this other information I just told you about, covering up the Clinton emails and all this other stuff I'm going to tell you about. They should have been investigating it. The press conference I wanted to see is Pam Bondi announcing that a grand jury has indicted Comey, Fracker, Brennan, Obama, whoever, all of them, and charged them, and the trials are going to start. That's what should have happened. Now we got the cart before the horse, and I think it causes us some problems, okay? And it allows the lamestream media to claim it's not true. I'm disappointed that we did it this way. But now we got to carry through. Now the boats have been launched. Now it's going to be investigation after investigation after investigation. So what is also going on is pushback. Okay, and our friend at Sundance at the Conservative Treehouse had this, and Charlie Kirk picked up on it. But this is how things work. Counterattack. New Intelligence Authorization Act seeks to curb power of the DNI. Well, what does this mean? Well, they have to pass, the Senate has to pass the defense authorization package every 2 years or whatever it is. And Tom Cotton is trying to stick this in. Listen to what it says. The response from Senate Chairman Tom Cotton and the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence to the action of DNI Tulsi Gabbard was predictable. The SSCI has now framed the Intelligence Authorization Act for fiscal year 2026 to modify the responsibilities and authorities of the Director of National Intelligence. We knew this was coming. The Intelligence Committee does not like the rogue actors amid their ranks, especially if those people have cross-silo access. The silo system is designed to protect the deep state. Any entity who can cross-reference their inserted information becomes a risk to the enterprise. Senator Cotton cannot directly oppose Tulsi Gabbard without exposing himself. Thus, someone, not the SSCI, writes the legislative changes to the Intelligence Committee rules and procedures, and Tom Cotton simply advances them. That's the way the system in D.C. operates. So now that Tulsi Gabbard's the DNI, not one of their handpicked people, and she's seeing the information across all the agencies and connecting the dots and coming out with them, oh, we can't have that. We have to change that. Do you see how bad the fight is? How deep the deep state is? But Tulsi Gabbard deserves all the credit in the world for her courage to fight this fight. And we've got to support her by making sure the information gets out. And there's just more to come. There's going to be disclosure after disclosure. I posted this story. Documents prove Biden AG and White House intentionally targeted parents. And again, those of you who watch this podcast are going to go, oh, yeah, we knew that. But no, we didn't have the proof. Damning revelations in federal documents obtained by a conservative watchdog group show the Biden administration's Justice Department sought a federal hook so they could investigate and criminally charge parents protesting school policies related to COVID, transgenderism, critical race theory, and other issues. Career attorneys in the DOJ argued in the released correspondence that such a move was legally baseless and would trample the First Amendment rights of parents, and yet they persisted. Their own people said, no, you can't do this. They didn't give a damn. That's the people who didn't care about democracy. These are the people who are a threat to our Constitution. The Biden leftists, the Obama leftists, the Chinese communist-funded leftists who are trying to destroy our country, when they had control of our government illegally, they used the law against us when there was no basis. The government documents obtained by America First Legal conclusively prove a memo from former U.S. Attorney General Merrick Garland mobilized the full force of the federal government's firepower against concerned parents, not to protect schools, but to silence dissent. And the ensuing investigation was politically orchestrated and coordinated with the Biden White House America First Legal charge on Friday. The AFL, in an extensive release on its website, reported these never-before-seen documents, again, evidence, not allegations, not accusations. These are documents uncovered only because of AFL's relentless efforts over the past 3.5 years, exposed not only the Biden White House's involvement in pushing a weaponized DOJ, but also strong dissent from careers within the Department of Civil Rights Division, who warned that there was no federal authority or legal basis to target these parents in the first place. Who's the tyrant? It ain't Donald Trump. It was Joe Biden or whoever the hell was running the auto pen. It was Barack Obama. It's just a fact. And it continues. Here you go. The Biden administration stole your data to rig elections and censor speech. This is from Matt Margolis from from PJ Media. Okay, listen to this. Jason Chaffetz has delivered a devastating expose that should terrify every American who values his or her constitutional rights. Writing in the New York Post, the former House Oversight Committee chairman pulls back the curtain on what may be the most comprehensive assault on American democracy we've witnessed in our lifetime, and it's happening with our own tax dollars. Shavitz revealed that the Biden administration didn't just weaponize the federal agencies against political opponents like Trump and Bannon and Navarro and all those guys. It orchestrated an elaborate data theft operation that would make an authoritarian regime jealous. As Shavitz explains, federal entities outsourced unlawful data collection to politically sympathetic partners. Rather than directly amassing data, they procured or exchanged it from or within nonprofits and technology firms. This isn't some conspiracy theory cooked up by partisan critics. This is documented reality backed by Freedom of Information Act requests and congressional testimony. The scope of this operation is breathtaking. Shavitz exposed how the Small Business Administration, the SBA, an agency supposedly focused on helping entrepreneurs, was transformed into a partisan voter registration machine. The SBA proactively reached out to states, especially battleground states like Arizona and Georgia, to seek recognition as voter registration organizations, despite federal law stipulating that states must initiate this process under the National Voter Registration Act. When SBA Associate Administrator Jennifer Kim was pressed during a 2024 hearing about whether the agency conducted events in non-democratic leaning regions, she couldn't provide a straight answer. The evidence speaks for itself. Documented evidence of political bias in these efforts reveals an administration that viewed federal resources as tools for electoral manipulation. They were registering Democrats only in battleground states using the SBA, which is funded and paid for by our tax dollars. That's what they did. But voter manipulation was just the beginning. The Biden administration data dragnet extended to financial surveillance that targeted Americans based on their political beliefs. Christian nonprofits, gun manufacturers, conservative protesters, even members of the Trump family found their accounts terminated without justification. As Shavitz noted, this initiative ultimately targeted Christian nonprofits, gun manufacturers, even Melania and Barron Trump shutting down their accounts without justification. This is what Jim Jordan's investigation into the weaponization of government against the American people. All of this is connected. Do you see? It goes back to 2015 with Hillary Clinton taking money from Russia and having an illegal email server that every foreign country that paid her got access to our national secrets. That's treason. To Obama knowing that and him actually being on the email server himself, to this whole Russia thing where there was no evidence that Russia was trying to elect Trump. They said they didn't really care. That's what the evidence shows. And then they manufactured this thing to just try to stop Trump from winning. Then, after he won, to keep him from being the president. And then, after they did that for 4 years with impeachment after impeachment based on lies upon lies, they stole the 2020 election. That investigation hasn't even started. And now we're going to look at January 6th. I'm going to talk about that later. And we're going to keep going all the way to the Biden auto pen and keep going. You and I must keep up on our messaging. You must share these stories that we put out and give you through your social media, through email, through text message, whatever. Use our chapters player where you can take any story and go right to that link in the podcast and share that link with people. Okay? It's up to us to win the narrative war. It's critical. And so what is the left doing? Okay? And again, you've got to pick up on this. That's why you watch this podcast. You've got to understand what the enemy's doing. All right? Here's what they're doing. Such bull crap. Not every Democrat wants to talk about Epstein. What's going on is that Hakeem Jeffries and these guys, what happened? Ever since the Epstein thing with, which was, I think, poorly handled by Pam Bondi, came out, what has the left been doing? Oh, Donald Trump was mentioned in the documents. And therefore, he's doing this Russia thing. Tulsi Gabbard is putting this out to distract from Trump's culpability with Epstein. It's total bullcrap. It's Russia, Russia, Russia all over again. But you've got to know that, and you've got to fight that. House Democrats are at odds over whether to use Republicans' blow up over the Jeffrey Epstein files as a talking point while they are in their districts for the 5-week summer recess. All the House nerds are coming home to your district. You need to go see them, and you need to confront them about some things. And I'll talk about that next. Majority Leader Hakeem Jeffries' leadership team has encouraged caucus members to maintain the drumbeat on Epstein, but some Democrats say are sick of talking about it. House Democrats' messaging arm sent members an alert Wednesday before they left Washington, urging them to amplify a Wall Street Journal report that President Trump is in Epstein's files and demand that House Republicans stop covering up for Trump. So again, Pam Bondi comes out and says, we got nothing. We got no list, okay? And Epstein killed himself, and that's all we're going to release. Well, then they had to start to walk that back, all right? But the left grabbed onto that and said, oh, it's a cover-up. Several House Democrats said they would rather spend August discussing more substantial matters. However, with one who spoke on condition of anonymity telling Axios, candidly, this is just such bullcrap. I think the big focus is going to be on health care because that's what people care about. And I don't think this issue is big outside of the Beltware. However, other Democrats argue that going after Republicans on policy and then slamming on Epstein aren't mutually exclusive. I think all these issues are linked together, said Representative Greg Costar, Democrat from Texas. What Jeffries is saying, asked Wednesday at a press conference if he is concerned the Epstein issue would overshadow Democrats' attacks on Trump's big, beautiful bill, Jeffries said the reality is they're all connected. Donald Trump, his administration, and House Republicans have delivered nothing more than a government of billionaires, by the billionaires, and for the billionaires, he said. Total lies, which you and I have to debunk. And I'm going to give you a video in a couple stories here that you can use to debunk that. Yet, every Dem voted for raising taxes. Remember, they all voted against the big, beautiful bill. What did the big, beautiful bill do? It made the tax cuts from 2017 and added no tax on tips and no tax on overtime into the tax code permanently. The Democrats voted for higher taxes. That's what you got to talk about at their town halls. But you've got to refute this story. And so, the DOJ did. DOJ calls reports saying AG told Trump he was named in Epstein files a falsehood. Well, that never stops them, right? Attorney General Pam Bondi notified President Trump months ago that he was named in the Jeffrey Epstein files multiple times, outlets report Wednesday. The Department of Justice called the report false. The report comes as the Trump administration faces mounting accusations that the DOJ isn't being transparent enough about its Epstein investigations. Okay? So what did the Trump people do after Bondi flubbed this whole thing? What did they do? Well, they went to the courts because what David Horowitz, I get Daniel and David, Professor Horowitz, who was Epstein's lawyer, said that the DOJ and the FBI can't release this stuff because it's grand jury stuff that the judge has sealed. So what did the DOJ do? Trump ordered Pam Bondi to go to the judge and say, we want you to unseal all the information about Epstein. And the court refused. A Biden-appointed judge refused. See? So they're not covering it up. And that was a good move by Pam Bondi and Trump to say, here, we want to give it to you. And then, we heard that the DOJ wanted to meet with Ghislaine, I always have trouble with her first name, Ghislaine Maxwell, who was, Epstein's partner in crime. And that actually happened this week. And so I'm going to play this very short clip because it's really makes things worse. Listen to this.
Fox News alert. Justice Department lawyers visited Ghislaine Maxwell in prison for the second day in a row, and they had a lot of questions.
What was the focus of the question?
They asked about every possible thing you could imagine, everything.
She was asked
maybe about 100 different people. She answered questions about everybody, and she didn't hold anything back.
Maxwell was reportedly given limited immunity so she could speak freely during the meetings with Deputy AG Todd Blanche.
Okay. They asked her about 100 people. Isn't that a list? And it was the DOJ attorneys asking Maxwell about 100 people. Who are they? You obviously know who the hell they are because you asked her about them. Why haven't you disclosed that list to us? Oh, to protect the innocent? Wow. But here's the bottom line. It's going to come out. It's going to come out. And that's to our advantage. The process may not be what we want, but the end result is going to be what we want. And that's going to be people being charged, people being convicted of all these different things that have happened. Then we had this come out this week, which I think is an important thing. Huge. House oversight votes to subpoena Bill and Hillary Clinton, James Comey, Loretta Lynch, and others. This is serious. Bill Clinton's a former president. It says, on Wednesday, the House Oversight Committee voted to direct the chairman of that committee, Republican James Comer, to subpoena Bill and Hillary Clinton, James Comey, Loretta Lynch, Eric Holder, Merrick Garland, Robert Mueller, William Barr, Jeff Sessions, Alberto Gonzalez, seeking testimony on the Epstein affair. This is, as someone said, a big freaking deal. A House panel voted in favor of subpoenaing former President Bill Clinton and former Secretary Hillary Clinton on Wednesday. Representative Scott Perry from Pennsylvania offered a motion during the House Oversight Committee subcommittee hearing to call on Committee Chairman James Comer to subpoena people with possible links to Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein. I have a motion to subpoena the following individuals to expand the full committee investigation. And the committee is also demanding that the DOJ turn over all documents that they've got. So they want to go after this. And so what are they going to find? Well, there's definitely stuff there. And this is just more pressure. And then you got the auto pen thing still going on. And this week, they've all the people, the doctor for Biden and his aides have all taken the fifth, except for this Ron Plame guy who, basically didn't take the fifth. He said what they thought he would say, that, Biden wasn't as sharp as a tack, but he still had enough, mental faculties to know what he was doing. All right. So we'll see what happened. But Rand Paul came up with this idea because the question is, with the Biden auto pens, are the pardons legal? Is anything that was signed legal? Well, how do you test that? Rand Paul says, let's test legality of Biden auto pen pardons, and let's start by charging Anthony Fauci. Now, why? Why would he do that? Well, as we know, thousands of documents and pardons weren't signed by then President Joe Biden during his disastrous tenure. They were, quote, signed by a robotic auto pen. Both the House Oversight Committee and the White House Counsel's Office are currently investigating whether they are legal, considering old Joe may not have been even known what that certain measures were being auto-penned in his name. At least one senator doesn't believe the pardons will stand up to legal scrutiny, and he wants to kill two birds with one stone, challenging them in court and charging former chief medical advisor to the president and serial fabulist Dr. Anthony Fauci. The idea is simple. The Department of Justice should charge Fauci with lying to Congress. Paul said, who is chairman of the Senate Homeland Security Committee, Tuesday, I do believe Anthony Fauci committed a felony by lying to Congress. So you have to charge him with a felony, take him to court, and then the court will decide whether or not the pardon can be upheld. Paul added, you can argue until you're blue in the face that you can't do auto pens and that maybe the president wasn't fully aware of it, but the only way to actually do this is if you charge someone who has been pardoned. Okay? That's the key. I think also Anthony Fauci is the most likely to be chargeable. There are other people. Hunter Biden could be charged as well, but someone has to be charged first. I think it should be Fauci. Let's start there. He lied to Congress. Charge him, and then let's let the courts, force the courts to decide about the pardons. Okay? So while all this is going on, okay, and you have to play a role in this, you have to get the word out. You have to get the truth out. You have to share these stories, right? We have the links on our podcast page of every story I'm talking about. You can share the actual article links with people if you want to do that instead of the video. But you've got to share this. Trump just keeps working his butt off for you and I. He keeps working his butt off for America. This was a huge story. AstraZeneca to invest $50 billion in U.S. as tariff threat looms. All right. The UK-based drug maker joins a growing list of pharmaceutical giants committing to large-scale investments in the United States. AstraZeneca said on Tuesday it plans to invest $50 billion in the United States, $50 billion by 2030, funding a new multi-million-dollar manufacturing facility in Virginia and expanding research, development, and cell therapy operations in Maryland, Massachusetts, California, Indiana, and Texas. That's huge, folks. The Virginia site will manufacture drug substances for weight management and metabolic treatments, including the oral GLP-1 drugs, broxistat, oral PCSK9 inhibitors, and other things. The plant will produce small molecules, peptides, and other things, AstraZeneca said. AstraZeneca expects to move to help drive annual revenue to $80 billion by 2030, with half of that generated in the United States, its largest market. AstraZeneca's latest commitment adds to the $3.5 billion U.S. investment it announced in November 2024. Trump gets them to go with tariffs from $3.5 billion to $50 billion to build plants in those states where you can get good jobs. That's what it's all about. And then he just took it to a different level. And you may have heard about this, but it just got buried by the Russia story and the Epstein distraction, right? You know, the Epstein effort to distract you. This is massive. Trump announces $550 billion trade deal with Japan. This was unreal, folks. This was a huge deal. President Trump on Tuesday announced a massive deal with Japan, securing the United States over $500 billion in investments and opening Japan to U.S. automobiles, rice, and agricultural products. Japan does not allow American companies to import anything. Now they are. Japan will invest at my direction $550 billion into the United States, which will receive 90% of the profits, Trump said in a statement. This deal will create hundreds of thousands of jobs. There has never been anything like it. This comes after President Trump's July 7th letter to Japanese Prime Minister threatening a 25% tariff starting August 1st if they did not eliminate trade barriers or build and manufacture in the United States. Basically, what happened is they agreed on a 15% trade, and Trump gave some relief to Japanese automakers, Toyota, Honda, Hyundai, not Hyundai might not be, but Toyota, Honda, and others. And so this is a big deal. Now, this $550 billion basically is what Trump is saying is if we need to build electric plants, if we need to build data centers, if we need to build some other kind of manufacturing, like mining for rare earth minerals, which we're going to talk about later, Japan has agreed to help fund that. $550 billion, folks. $500 billion in one deal. How many people do you know that know about this? You got to tell them. You got to tell them. Okay? And so I put out, this graphic, which I was very proud of. I thought I did a nice job with Rosie the Riveter in it, saying we can do it. And I've got young tradespeople with an eagle and American flag. And it says, we are looking for 10 million patriots to rebuild our nation and the middle class. And when you go to that page, that article at wethepeopleconvention.org, you'll see a video, a passionate video that was part of the podcast last week. That's just 15 minutes of me explaining that this is a patriotic act. To join the skilled trades right now is a patriotic act. And that's why you should do it. Okay? And I said, that in my podcast last week, and this is important for you guys to know. I never ask you to do anything that I don't believe that I and Nan shouldn't do. So when I say call the Senate and have them pass the $9 billion rescission bill, we contacted the Senate. We contacted our senators. We asked you to do it so you would do it. We have to do it. So last week I said, contact your local school board and say, listen, share the video, share the Mike Rowe video that I gave you. And on this article, and on the, our website with the article I just talking about, I've got a link to Mike Rowe's video right there. It says, contact your school board members and share this video, where Mike Rowe says they're coming for the white collar jobs. They're not coming for the blue collar jobs. They're not coming for the machinist and the carpenter and the HVAC person. So what did I do? I wrote to the Springfield school system here in Summit County. And I said to the superintendent and all the school board members, and I even copied our township trustees, and I said, we are in a crisis like World War II. This is as serious as us getting the nuclear bomb before the Nazis. If we don't win the AI war, China is going to rule the world and we are done. You, the school district, need a plan to turbocharge the number of kids going into the trades. So what I think I'm going to try to do is I spent all week in this interchange with them. And it started with your typical excuses. Oh, we don't have enough state funding now. How can we double the skilled trades? And, we've been doing this. We have kids who go to, Portage Lakes Career Center and get skilled in the trades. And I'm saying, that's not what I'm asking you. I'm asking you how you can use your resources, the $28 million budget you've got, to get kids and their parents to understand how serious this threat is and that it's a patriotic act for them to join the trades right now. And I'm so thinking of taking all that email correspondence and putting it in a PDF and sending it out so you guys can download it and copy my arguments. Because I think you'll find I made some compelling arguments. We'll see what they do. All we can do is bring it to them, because you know what? They don't know. These are the educated idiots. These are the people who went to college to get indoctrinated, who are running your schools. They don't understand. I said that in one part later, I said, here's a video with Eric Schmidt explaining that your school district may cease to exist in 5 years, as little as 5 years, because of AI. You need to get involved with this skilled trade situation to make yourself relevant in the age of AI and save your future, right? I'll try to put that together and share that with you. I got notes from some of you saying, Tom, I talked to my school. Tom, in our state of Idaho or Nebraska, we've got these great career centers, and we're pushing students towards that. I want to hear from you. I want to know what you're finding out. But I said last week, it is up to us, right? It's our patriotic duty. We're looking for 10 million patriots to rebuild our nation and the middle class. You and I have to do that. Not Donald Trump. He's creating these jobs. We got to fill them. We have to fill them. And I told you last week, it's only 3%. We have 330 million people. Okay? If you need 10 million people to fill these jobs, it's a small percentage. And it's great for them. But folks, we got to win this. We must. We're not kidding. This is serious. Share this information and help get it done. And one of the ways we're helping get it done, this is another awesome thing Trump is doing. Trump EPA will propose repealing finding that climate change endangers public health. OMG. Oh my God. This is the commie climate activists. This law has done more to hurt the West in our nation, maybe than any other law, because it codified the hoax of climate change as a threat to our health when it wasn't true. The Trump administration will propose the repeal of a landmark 2009 determination that climate change poses a danger to the public, Environmental Protection Agency Administrator Lee Zeldin said Wednesday. EPA has sent to the Office of Management and Budget a proposed rule to repeal the 2009 endangerment finding from the Obama EPA. Through the endangerment finding, there has been into the trillions worth of regulations, including tailpipe emissions, including electric vehicle mandates. In 2009, then President Obama's administration made a formal determination that greenhouse gases, including carbon dioxide and methane, posed a threat to public health. It found emissions from vehicles contributed to the problem. The finding provided a legal basis for the EPA regulations on these planet-heating gases, including for its rules requiring automakers to cut emissions from their vehicle fleets. While these rules did not explicitly mandate a pivot to electric vehicles, standards issued by the Biden administration were expected to push the vehicle market toward electric cars in the years ahead. The EPA plans to propose a rule to repeal the findings where they were first reported. Wow. It was all a lie from the beginning. Carbon dioxide is food for plants. That's why we have more trees in the United States than there were at the founding of our nation. Okay? That's a fact. Go look it up. Use your favorite AI to look it up. Now they're going to reverse this. But remember, this is a rule change. Congress needs to then pass a law saying this is gone. They got to codify it. Otherwise, if a Dem gets in, it's right back. We talked about that last week, about how the House has put some 50 of Trump's executive orders into law, and they got to keep going. Okay? And then this story was really important because I'm talking to you about the urgency of we got to win the AI war. What do we have to do? We have to build data centers, but you have to have enough electricity to fuel them. And I talked to you about the fact that we need to double our entire national energy output by 2030. Double it. Whoa, that's hyperspeed. Well, here's a case of one way that they're doing it. Federal regulators clear pathway for shuttered Michigan nuclear plant to restart. This is a proud and historic moment for our team, for Michigan, and for the United States, Holtec International President Kelly Trice said in a statement. The NRC's approval to transition Palisades back to an operating license represents an unprecedented milestone in U.S. nuclear energy. Our mission remains clear: to restart the Palisades nuclear reactor safely, securely, reliably, and in support of America's energy future, while supporting local jobs and economic growth for decades to come. The decision will allow the Western Michigan plant to receive new fuel and transitions its licensed reactor operator to a small on-shift status. The 800 megawatt plant is poised to receive and load the fuel as soon as August 25th, folks, a month from now. In May, the NRC released a final environmental assessment related to the project, in which regulators determined the restart would have no significant environmental effects. There are still several steps Holtec must take before restarting the shuttered plant, including receiving approval for its repairs to the plant's steam generators. This is important. It was revealed late last year that more than 1,000 tubes connected to the steam generators, which turn water heated by the nuclear reactor into steam that then is converted to electricity, were damaged by stress corrosion cracking due to the material's age. Rather than replacing the damaged tubes entirely, Holtec said it would use a sleeving technique, which involves coating the tubes with metal sleeves to cover any damage. Critics of the restart have blasted this technique as a Band-Aid solution, claiming it will not prevent any further damage to the unaffected tubes. Okay, so again, we've got to do this, but we've got to do it right. And so I get concerned. Like, okay, you need to restart this, and you've got these damaged tubes. Why not put sleeves in all of them? Why not be safe than sorry? It's a nuclear reactor. So you and I, we got to be excited by this. This is big. Okay. Wow. Here's a nuclear reactor coming online. They're trying to bring 3 Mile Island back online. Other places are doing the same thing, but you got to do it right. So we got to be willing to question as well as, encourage. So I just thought I'd bring that up so we could keep our perspective, because I think it's important. So I'm going to close this part of the podcast just by giving you some receipts on what the House has done for you to share with people, and then talking about why we hate the RINOs. So let me play this quick video from Mike Johnson.
The House Republicans are looking forward to going back to their districts. They have a lot to be proud of and a lot of good news to share back home. It's just 6 months. 6 months of this administration and this Congress. We worked closely with President Trump. We've delivered on the mandate from the American people. We have the safest border now in the history of the country. Inflation is cooling. We passed one of the most consequential pieces of legislation in the history of this institution, the One Big Beautiful Bill. And what that did, as you know, was it secured the largest tax cut for American workers, the largest single investment in border security and national defense in generations, the largest reduction in spending in the history of any government on planet Earth, and much more. President Trump is making historic trade deals to balance the playing field and bring trillions of dollars of investment into America. As a side note, I was telling you, I was in the Oval Office last night for the historic moment where he made the trade deal with Japan. It was really something to see. I'll write a book about it one day. The Art of the Deal. It was a masterclass. We passed over 250 bills. We voted to codify 50 of President Trump's executive actions, and we're just getting started. He has signed into law so far important legislation like the Lake and Riley Act, the Halt Fentanyl Act, the Take It Down Act, the Genius Act, and of course the $9 billion rescissions package. In just 6 months, President Trump and House Republicans have made safer, stronger, and more prosperous America. We have worked to do that, fulfilling our campaign promises, and there's much more to come. And during the district work period, we'll be crisscrossing our districts and sharing with constituents the impact of all that hard work here on Capitol Hill.
Wow. Okay? That's a wow. That's big. That video, it's 1:30 long. It's on our X account. Follow me, Tom Z WTPC. Tom Z WTPC on X. It will be on our podcast page, and you can share just that video with everyone. You need to share it with everyone, because it shows that what Hakeem Jeffries is saying, that, the government, the Republicans' big, beautiful bill is buy billionaires for billionaires is bullcrap. Okay? You need to prove they're full of crap. You do that with good information. You share that. But now, again, they're home for recess, right? Oh, they work so hard. They work 3 days a week in the Senate, and now we're going to take 5 weeks off. Do you get 5 weeks off if you're working? What is this, France? What the hell? So now they're coming home. Yeah, you know what they're doing? You know what they're doing in Washington when they're home on recess? This is what they're... Remember, I asked all of you, and I did call our senators and say, start working 5 days a week, pass the rescission thing, and confirm all of Trump's appointees, right? That's what we asked. Here's what they're doing. This is from, this came out from Thomas Massey. During August recess, Speaker Johnson and Leader Thune plan to call the House and Senate into session every 4 or 5 days with practically no one there, for the sole purpose of preventing Trump from making recess appointments. Here's what the House pro forma session looked like today, and it's basically crickets. What the hell? What the hell? What purpose does this serve? All you hear the House and the Senate say is the Democrats are stopping us from confirming these Trump appointees. They're making us do 30 hours of debate and questions on every single person. There's over 200 Trump appointees waiting to be confirmed. All they have to do, if they go on recess, which they shouldn't do, is stay on recess. And then Trump can make recess appointments of all of them with a stroke of a pen. And what are the Republican leaders doing? What are the RINOs doing? They are intentionally helping the Democrats thwart President Trump. What the hell? You need to confront your House member, your senators, and you need to say, stay out, do not go into full recess so that the president can appoint his people, and let's be done with it, damn it. If you're not going to work, at least let the president get his people in place to work. It's outrageous. They're going to be home in your district. Go see them in person and say, what the hell? And then write to Thune, write to Johnson and say, stay in recess, damn it. Are you for the president or are you just a bunch of liars? Looks to me like they're a bunch of liars. Yeah, no surprise to us. All right, we got lots more to cover. I hope you enjoyed the first part of the podcast. We got a lot more coming up. I appreciate you taking your time to watch. We'll be back after these short breaks. You've been listening to the We the People Convention News and Opinion Podcast, and my name is Tom Zawistowski. The We the People Convention News and Opinion radio program is paid for by donors like you. You can donate to the We the People Convention and support our cause by going to wethepeopleconvention.org or by sending your check in any amount to We the People Convention, P.O. Box 6211, Akron, Ohio 44312. When you're playing a video, including our podcast, you'll see this little cloud button. And if you click it, it'll actually download the video to your hard disk. And this works on our podcast page as well. If you're playing our podcast, and it's going to be loud, so I won't play it for much, but there's our podcast playing, and you can see this little, download button. Okay. The other thing you got to notice on our podcast page is that there's a link here where you can send me a message about this podcast. Hey, it was great. Hey, I didn't like it. What, something was wrong, or here's a correction, that kind of thing. You can use that link. And then these are the stories that I covered in this particular podcast. And you'll see there's links that go to the stories, to the articles that I used in reporting on that. So you can click on that. You'll also see that you can sign up for our emails and text messages, but you can also watch our podcast on Roku TV and on Amazon Fire TV. And these are the instructions for doing that. So this is all on our podcast page, right on the front page where the yellow button was. So if you click there, this is our podcast page. These are the instructions for watching on Roku TV or Amazon Fire. And I watch our podcast on TV. It just feels more comfortable. So you can do that. We're also on Rumble. If you go to Rumble, you should join Rumble. And it's Tom Z at WTPC. You'll see our podcast there. So you can get us a lot of different ways, including on Apple iTunes. And then this is an audio version of our podcast. If you click here, it'll just play the audio of the podcast. It will not, show you the video. So people can, listen to that while they're jogging or, working out, working in the yard, or just relaxing and just want to listen to the audio and not watch the video. And again, this is available on phone, on your iPad, on your laptop, on your computer, any way you want. And you can share this whatever you see. If you're on a page that you really like, and you see an article that you think, geez, I've got to share this article, with someone in my family. You can send them an email by clicking on the little envelope. You can post it on Parler or MeWe. If you click on this, you get all kinds of options, where you can put it on Twitter or Facebook, whatever, which we don't support, but you can do whatever you want. So we ask that you share what you see on our We the People Convention site, and that you get more people to look at it, because that's the whole idea here, to help educate people, inform them. And then, as I said before, Link, we're not just about talk, we're about action. And in my podcast every week, which is published every Saturday, so if the new podcast usually comes out every Saturday, and in that podcast, I will ask you to do certain things that will help protect and defend your individual freedom, liberty, and prosperity. So that's the We the People Convention website. Come back often, use it, to be informed, and share it with others. Thanks a lot. All right. Welcome back. Hope you enjoyed the first part of the podcast. Again, I need to correct our videos. Those commercials are getting a little old. I've got to find time to do them over again. We are on X, which used to be Twitter. We are on Facebook. We are on YouTube. Okay. We're on TikTok, for goodness sakes. Matter of fact, I don't know if last week, if you remember, the last thing I did on the podcast was the story about Gunsmoke. The old 50-year-old, TV show in black and white got more video streams than any Disney product in the month of June. And so I put that little clip on TikTok and it went crazy. Last I looked, we had like 50,000 views of that video with unbelievable comments from people just loving it, saying, I watch Gunsmoke all the time. I watch all these other shows. It was awesome. So we're getting new people in here because we're reaching them in different ways. So just know that we are on those platforms as well. You should go there, and if you're on those platforms, and share the stories we post and help get the word out. Why? Because it's real simple. I'm asking you to confront your House and Senate members about the recess, right? I'm asking you to share the Margot Hemingway piece about how the media is covering up the Russia hoax that they started and executed against the American people. The more people we get to watch this podcast and those clips, the more people who take action, the more will get done. It's that simple. That's why I asked you to share this podcast with people. And so, I can't thank you enough for being here, because we are activists. We are not passive. We want to make sure we protect and defend our individual freedom, liberty, and prosperity. And we do that by winning the narrative war, by being engaged with our elected officials, and by supporting the people, whether they're companies or government agencies or whatever, that support individual freedom, liberty, and prosperity, and help us defeat the forces that are trying to destroy us, which is mainly communist China. Okay? That's why we're here. That's why you're watching, and that's why we're glad you're here watching. Okay? So let's go on with the rest of the podcast, because there's some really good things. This was a big deal. I hope you picked up on it, but Trump signs executive orders targeting woke AI models and regulations. And I was like, what? This just came out of nowhere. Again, he's doing so much. It's like drinking from a fire hose. But this was a big story. Donald Trump on Wednesday signed a trio of executive orders that he vowed would turn the United States into an AI export powerhouse, including one targeting that what the White House described as woke artificial intelligence models. During remarks on an AI summit in Washington, Trump decried woke Marxism lunacy in the AI models before signing the orders on stage at the Mellon Auditorium. Once and for all, we are getting rid of woke. Is that okay? Trump said, drawing loud applause from the audience of AI industry leaders. He then asserted that his predecessor, Joe Biden, had established toxic diversity, equality, and inclusion ideology as a guiding principle of AI development. So you immediately know that what the end product of your development was going to be. The new order requires any artificial intelligence company receiving federal funding, which is all of them, to maintain politically neutral AI models free of ideological dogmas such as DEI, putting pressure on an industry increasingly seeking to partner with government agencies. It is a part of the Trump administration's broader anti-diversity campaign that also targets federal agencies, academic institutions, and the military. While the directive emphasized that the federal government should be hesitant to regulate the functionality of AI models in the private marketplace, it asserts that public procurement carries the obligation not to procure models that sacrifice truthfulness and accuracy to ideological agendas. What a concept! Wow, what a concept, Mr. President. The metrics of that, what make an AI model politically biased, are contentious and often open to interpretation, however, and therefore may allow the administration to use the order to target companies at its discretion. The other orders basically said we're expediting federal permitting for data centers. So that's critical. We need these data centers to overcome China's advantage with they've got power and they're building AI centers better, faster than we are. Ours are better, but they're making more of them, okay? And then the third part of this was that Trump basically said that we are going to work with AI to export the American brand of AI to all these foreign foreign countries. That's a big thing. What he's basically saying, he signed an executive order saying, we are going to fight to establish the American AI as the default in the world. And that is a big shot at China. This is visionary. And Trump is way ahead of the curve on this. And you better be thankful of that, because this is serious. China, if they win this war, we are destroyed. The world comes under communist rule. And I mean 1984 type stuff. No privacy, no individual freedom, liberty. You are a ward of the state. That's what we're fighting to prevent. And this thing he signed is huge. It's just really important. Might want to click on the link and read that story and share that with people. Then he did something again that no one wants to touch, but needs to be addressed. Trump signs orders to redirect federal funds from homelessness towards rehabilitation. Homelessness. This has been going on in our country and no one does anything. Trump just did. The DOJ is also ordered to end consent decrees that limit state and local governments' ability to commit the homeless who are at risk to themselves and others. So there's these consent decrees that say these people on your streets are mentally ill, but you can't commit them. They want to get rid of that. President Donald Trump signed an executive order on July 24th that takes federal resources for addressing homelessness and redirects them towards rehabilitation and programs that tackle substance abuse. The order, dubbed Ending Crime and Disorder on American Streets by the White House, aimed to shift the homelessness into long-term institutional settings for humane treatment. We used to have mental institutions to treat the mentally ill. Now we dump them on the streets and say that's more humane. That's insane. That's not humane. And now he's reversing this. Surrendering our cities and citizens to disorder and fear is neither compassionate to the homeless nor other citizens, the White House said. The order directs Attorney General Pam Bondi, Secretary of Health and Human Services Robert F. Kennedy Jr., Secretary of Housing and Urban Development Scott Turner, and Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy to make sure states and cities that enforce prohibitions on open illicit drug use, urban camping and loitering, and urban squatting and track the location of sex offenders are given priority for federal grants. The goal is to redirect federal funds to ensure that the homeless, people who are a danger to themselves and others and suffer from serious mental illnesses are given treatment and removed from the streets. The order did not say how much money would be allocated to the effort, but at least they're trying to change the game, right? At least they're trying to redirect it. And that's commendable, no doubt about it. This was another big court win. Supreme Court sides with Trump administration in battle over ability to remove agency commissioners. So this was another lawfare thing that the left tried to stop Trump from being president and doing what we want. What did we vote for? We voted to downsize government and to clean out the deep state and the corruption. That's what Trump's been trying to do. That's the left's been trying to stop. The Supreme Court on Wednesday cleared the way for the Trump administration to remove 3 of the 5 members of the Consumer Public Safety Commission from office while their challenges to their firings continue. In a brief unsigned order, the justices blocked, at least for now, a ruling by a federal judge in Maryland that had stopped the Trump administration's efforts. Now, this Consumer Protection Safety Commission is, in my opinion, an illegal, it should not exist. Elizabeth Warren pushed this through, and it basically was a way for the left to basically blame or hold hostage corporations and shake them down for money because they didn't follow the leftist, mandates. This needs to be dismantled, but because it was created by Congress, Trump can't dismantle it. but he can change the commissioners, and the Supreme Court just ruled that he could. So that was another positive thing there. Again, Trump has been fighting. In this podcast we talked about he's going after DEI and all these things. Trump secures $221 million from Columbia University settlement over alleged civil rights violations. $221 million fine for Columbia because they did not shut down the Hamas protests against Israel on their campuses, and they intimidated their students and professors. President Trump has secured a $221 million settlement with Columbia University to resolve multiple federal civil rights investigations. The deal includes $200 million over 3 years for allegedly discriminatory practices and $21 million to settle claims of anti-Semitic employment discrimination against Jewish faculty after the October 7, 2023 Hamas attacks on Israel. The White House called it the largest anti-Semitism-related settlement in U.S. history. Columbia confirmed the dollar amounts, but did not characterize the deal that way. Now the agreement restores billions in federal research funding and imposes oversight through an independent monitor. Columbia has agreed to reform, including enhanced campus protest rules and changing the disciplinary authority from faculty to administrators. So they pay $221 million in fines, but we're still going to give them billions of dollars for research. Okay. So, it's a win, but it's not a win that's enough for me. But at least, again, Trump is being criticized for these things, but then he's winning and he's doing what we voted for. He's going after the woke universities. And I guess Harvard will be next. We'll see if they settle. Somebody else settled. This was a big deal. Trump scores $36 million in big one settlement with CBS 60 Minutes over edited Kamala Harris interview. He did it. He won. He got CBS to pay up. President Trump announced Tuesday he has reached a settlement with CBS and Paramount triggered by a 60 Minutes interview with Vice President Kamala Harris. We have just achieved a big and important win in our historic lawsuits against 60 Minutes, CBS, and Paramount, Trump wrote on Truth Social. Just like ABC and George Stephanopoulos, CBS and its corporate owners knew that they had defrauded the American people and were desperate to settle. Trump said the Paramount paid $16 million in settlement and anticipated an additional $20 million from the new owners of CBS in advertising, PSAs, or similar programming. I wonder what Trump has in mind for that. This is another in a long line of victories over the fake news media who have been we are holding to account for their widespread fraud and deceit, Trump said. The Wall Street Journal, the failing New York Times, the Washington Post, MSDNC, CNN, and all the other mainstream media liars are on notice that the days of them being allowed to deceive the American people are over. Love it. Just love it, President Trump. Congratulations. I guess the $16 million is going to go to help build the Trump Library when he's no longer president. So that's a pretty cool thing. On the international front, I know those of you who watch this podcast regularly know that we usually cover international news in the second half of the podcast. Things are not going really well. They just aren't. And it just shows what a difficult task Trump has, because he's the best deal maker in the world, and it ain't working. We're not getting many deals done. Iran doubles down on refusal to end nuclear program, ready for war with Israel. This is not good news. Let's see. Iranian President Pezeshkian, I don't know how to say it, on Wednesday doubled down on Tehran's refusal to abandon its nuclear program and said Iran is fully prepared for a renewed fight with Israel. That ain't good. The Iranian president's comments came just 2 days after Tehran's foreign minister confirmed on Fox News that Iran will not give up its enrichment program, but continues to claim Tehran is not interested in developing nuclear weapons. Well, yeah, really? Okay, you're not going to give up enriching, but you don't want to build nuclear weapons. The president said, of Iran said, Trump's repeated claims that the U.S. obliterated Iran's nuclear program is just an illusion. But listen what he says next. Our nuclear capabilities are in the minds of our scientists and not in the facilities. So basically, Trump is right. They obliterated the facilities. And oh, yeah, a bunch of those mines were obliterated as well. but they still have some living nuclear scientists, and maybe Israel and Mossad is going to take care of those guys. All right. So they want to fight Israel. So I don't know. I don't know what happens next. I just know we don't want to fight Iran. The U.S. does not want troops on the ground, right? And the whole thing with even the bombing of Iran, as successful as that was, there were a lot of people on the MAGA side who weren't too happy with that, and that showed in the polls. And then on the Russia-Ukraine front, wow, they met this week for 40 minutes and came to no understanding for a peace. 40-minute meeting. That's it. They exchanged 1,200 prisoners. They're killing each other. And so when are these sanctions going to kick in? President Trump gave Putin 51 days. About 15 of those have come up. We'll see what he does. But they look like they aren't ready for peace. They're going to have to be, how shall I say, compelled to want peace through really harsh economic sanctions. We're going to see what comes with that. And then, the Hamas thing, the Gaza, the thing that Trump and Israel are trying to negotiate with Hamas over Gaza, they walked away from that again. Hamas is not serious. They're just not serious. And so on every front, we're not seeing any gains. And so we have to really work hard to support President Trump. But most of all, we have to work hard to build up our military. Peace through strength must mean you have strength. We talked about how we showed strength with the precision bombing of the Iranian nuclear facilities. That was good. We've also talked about how vulnerable we are because of our lack of manufacturing capability. Okay? We're this close to the edge. So I wanted to share this story with you because I just simply can't understand how this happens. I can't understand it, but it's real, and it relates to why you and I have to recruit people for the trades because of this. This is the story you got to share with people. China dominates key resources America needs to defend itself, reports finds from the Daily Caller Foundation. Okay? This is serious stuff. China's commanding grip on the world's market for battery materials could have potentially disastrous consequences for America's defense industry. The Chinese Communist Party controls more than 80% of the world's supply of lithium-ion batteries, and it also maintains a near monopoly on the components needed to manufacture them. The Foundation for the Defense of Democracy found in a report on the subject. Advanced batteries are used extensively in high-tech American weapon systems like drones and missile guidance systems. And China's willingness to weaponize its supply chain dominance is sounding alarms among defense experts. As the use of drones, robots, and other unmanned weapons platforms increase in importance, better batteries mean a better fighting force. The Russia-Ukraine war demonstrate that the way which drone warfare can transform a battlefield with an estimated 50,000 battery-reliant attack drones used per month. 50,000 drones a month. All have to have batteries, and China controls 80% of the battery market. Securing powerful and reliable American-made advanced batteries represents a critical national security priority. Many Americans' military small drones and similar devices have dependencies upon China, with batteries being an area of particular weakness. In World War II, they rationed rubber and nylon and metals because they needed it for the war efforts. Would you be for a rationing of batteries for a while, so that we could recoup the batteries we need for national defense? Would you give up, your flashlight and some of your devices, your remote control for your fan or whatever, for say 12 months to help replenish our battery supplies? I don't know if that makes sense, but this is the kind of emergency thinking I'm trying to get you and these school board people to think about. We're in serious trouble. Listen to the rest of this. Listen to this. China also dominates markets for other battery components, including 70% of the cathode market share and a whopping 97% of anode materials, according to the FTD report. The communist regime also has a stranglehold on markets for graphite and cobalt, which are key inputs for chip manufacturers in addition to batteries. How could this happen? Who in Congress, who in previous administrations was supposed to be watching this and let it happen? How did we become this vulnerable? Well, if you've been listening to this podcast for the last 15 years, you know it became possible because the communist Chinese paid off our elected officials in our government to do this, to give them advantage, to let them spy on us, which we've been reporting week after week, to buy farmland next to our military plants, to let 32,000 military-age Chinese people cross our border who we don't know where they are. This is what Donald Trump is fighting. This is what you and I are fighting. I hope I'm making it clear what a serious crisis this is. We are in severe danger, and we've got to do remarkable things to win the war, just like in World War II. And you and I play a key role, and we've got to step up and play that role. So there's the receipts. And then how does this happen? Listen to this. Oh my God. Carrie Lake, who we love, who got screwed in Arizona, who, they rigged the elections, in my opinion. They stole them, and Trump has named her the head of Voice of America. She reports this. Voice of America managers met with Chinese to discuss more favorable coverage for Beijing. What? Voice of America is a government agency whose job it is to put out America's message of freedom and liberty and prosperity to the globe in languages all over the globe, through radio, through websites, through other things. We know that they were doing the opposite. They were selling the woke agenda, trans and DEI and all this hate and America hate stuff to the world. And Trump fired them all. And the court finally came in and said, you can fire all these commie traitors. Okay? And this the proof that they were commie traitors. Listen to this. You won't believe it. Voice of America managers met multiple times with Chinese officials seeking to influence more favorable U.S. coverage of their country, part of a larger dynamic that proved to the detriment of America and its taxpayers funded media operations for the world, Trump advisor Carrie Lake told Just the News. Lake, the president's senior advisor for the U.S. Agency for Global Media, said the meetings with communist Chinese officials, both in Washington and abroad, were discovered as part of an investigation that exposed undue foreign influence on the Voice of America operations. We found in our investigations over the months that I've been here that the CCP operated out of the embassy in Washington, D.C., were meeting regularly with Voice of America management to tell them how they should be covering China. To Chinese, we're telling our Voice of America people how to cover them, not the White House. Lake said Tuesday night in a wide-ranging interview on Just the News No Noise television show. Lake said the coverage was skewed to portray China in a positive light, and that at least one VOA official with a Mandarin language division had pledged his support for the CCP at one meeting. A manager in our taxpayer-funded agency pledged allegiance to the Communist Chinese Party. How's that not treason? Can he be charged with treason? Should this person be prosecuted? I think yes. I mean, you can't make this stuff. It's so crazy. But then over the years, it's gotten more brazen. And I understand that VOA management, some of them actually went to China and met with CCP officials there. Lake also confirmed previous Just News reporting that VOA hired multiple Chinese nationals with ties to Chinese state media and sponsored hundreds of visas for other foreign journalists to come work in the United States. They co-opted, the Chinese co-opted a whole government agency and turn it to their benefit under the watch of supposed Republicans in Congress who weren't watching it all because they were getting paid by the Chinese too. Mitch McConnell and others. Wow. This is what Trump has to overcome. It's nuts. But he's working and winning. I thought this was really good. You probably didn't see this at all. Appeals court blocks gender identity mandates in adoption. Pronouns, pride parades, and hormone shots. Okay, now I'm sorry, I'm having trouble. My dentures are not fixed very well, and I'm not speaking very well today. I'm sorry. I'm doing my best, but please bear with me. I'm trying to slow down and be more able to speak. So let me cover this story. Judges nominated by President Trump, Clinton, and George W. Bush walked into a First Amendment case about compelled affirmation of gender identity and facilitation of medicalized transitions as a condition of adoption. The Ninth U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals on Thursday blocked Oregon's Department of Human Services from denying Jessica Bates' application to adopt a sibling she is fostering based on her refusal to honor the asserted gender identity of hypothetical adopted children in speech or actions, with the Trump and Clinton nominees overruling the Bush nominee. U.S. District Court Judge Ardeen Nelson, nominated by President Biden, denied a preliminary injunction for the widowed Christian mother of 5 in 2023, alleging that her failure to respect a child's LGBTQ identity imposes collateral harm on the child's development, safety, and well-being. So you can't adopt if you don't allow them to be trans, okay? The situation would be no different, the court ruled, if the state had restricted parental speech favoring more progressive views of sexuality and gender identity while compelling speech along the lines of Bates' more traditional understanding, according to opinion. The duo said the state's general conception of the child's best interest does not create a force field against the valid operation of their constitutional rights, such that it could deny adoption based on political views of race or religious affiliation of progressive parents. So you can't take away a parent's First Amendment rights by, setting up a rule for adoption. Oregon deems as unfit prospective parents who won't take young children to events like pride parades, as ODHS explicitly demanded of Bates. So Oregon Department of Children's Services demanded that this person take their kids to pride parades, which is falsely and incredulously dangerously, Bates' lawyer Jonathan Scruggs, Alliance Defending Freedom, said in celebrating the ruling. The Ninth Circuit Court was right to remind Oregon that the foster and adoption system is supposed to serve the best interests of the children, not the state's ideological crusade. Hear, hear, Alliance Defending Freedom. They're a group that has defended so many of our Christian parents and things against these state ideological First Amendment violating laws. Big win. I love it. That's huge. This story is important because it's going to lead to the next story after it. So you need to get this first. Existing home sales dropped almost 3% in June as prices hit record highs. This is critical. This is why Trump is beating on Jerome Powell and saying you've got to lower interest rates because it's killing us. Existing home sales declined 2.7% in June as prices hit record highs. The total housing inventory hit 1.53 million units, down 0.6% from May, but up 15.9% from a year ago. So there's more than 15% more houses on the market that are unsold. Why? Because the interest rates are so high. The U.S. has a 4.7 month supply of unsold inventory, up from 4.6% in May. A 6 month supply is generally considered a balanced market. The median sales price for existing homes stood at $435,000, up 2% from a year ago. This was a record high for June and the 24th consecutive month of year-over-year price increases. Multiple years of undersupply are driving the record home prices, NAR Chief Economist Lawrence Yun said. Home construction continues to lag behind population growth. And I will say, not population growth through natural population growth. Matter of fact, it just came out this week that our birth rate is the lowest ever now. We are almost as low as Europe. 1.6 is where we're at. You can't sustain that. But what happened is if you bring in 15 million illegals, they got to be somewhere. They're taking up housing stocks, which is making it impossible for kids to buy houses. And they're not buying houses, they're renting, okay? Home construction continues to lag behind population growth. This is holding back first-time homebuyers from entering the market. More supply is needed to increase the share of first-time homebuyers in the coming years, even though some markets appear to have a temporary oversupply at the moment. President Donald Trump blamed Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell for holding interest rates steady. Housing in our country is lagging because Jerome Too Late Powell refuses to lower interest rates, Trump wrote Wednesday. Families are being hurt because interest rates are too high, and even our country is having to pay a higher rate than it should because of Too Late Powell. Our rates should be 3 points lower than they are, saving us $1 trillion per year as a country in interest. The stubborn guy at the Fed just doesn't get it, never did and never will. The board should act, but they don't have the courage to do so. Now, I'm hearing they may act in August because Powell doesn't just have carte blanche. He doesn't decide the rates. There, as a board, I think there's 12 regional feds, okay, that the head of each of those has a vote. There is a real effort and a real movement on Wall Street that they're going to do something in August. And that would be great news. Maybe even next week, the end of July, but certainly in August. We'll see what happens. Now, why is this story important? This is the heart of a real crisis in our country with our young people. And I posted on our website at wethepeopleconvention.org in the video section this interview between Tucker Carlson and Charlie Kirk. Charlie Kirk warns of a youth revolt if income equality is not addressed. This is a really powerful interview. It's Tucker Carlson is maybe asking the questions, but this is all Charlie Kirk. And it's based on his hundreds of hours of speaking on college campuses with college students, of knowing what's going on with Gen Z. And it blows Tucker Carlson away. And so I need you to watch this video because it's going to help you understand. It helped me understand our son, who I just couldn't get where he was coming from. And there's some really stunning things in this. Now, I will warn you that they're really harsh on the baby boomers, on me, on many of you, because they basically accuse us of taking everything for ourselves and leaving the rest of the country out. And they make a pretty damn good case. And I actually had one of you who watched it write to me and said they were offended by it. And I said, well, don't be offended. Listen up. Listen to what they have to say. Now, I can't play the whole thing for you here, but I wanted to play this clip because there's a very important thing he talks about here. This is just like a 2.5 minute clip. Listen up.
2008 was 30 years old. It is now 38 years old. First-time homebuyer. So when we have a picture of a first-time homebuyer,
and that's scary.
You think of, kind of a toddler in one arm, a dog, you're trying to figure it out. 38 years old. So what is causing this? Well, number one, I don't want to get like too Ron Paul libertarian, but the Federal Reserve pumping in cheap money post-2008 has just been a catastrophe. We have spent too much money, borrowed too much money. We have deteriorated our currency. And the purchasing power every generation is getting weaker. So your dollar is actually going less and less as far as it has year over year. So then what is the consequence of this? So you have a generation that is renting a lot more than it's owning. So when you do not own something, why would you defend it? So you find then political radicalization start to seep in because an entire generation is getting routinely cynical year over year as their net worth either stays at zero or goes into negative. Now, my question for every Republican senator and congressman watching this, if you do not know these 4 letters, then you are not doing your job. BNPL. Do you know what that means?
No clue.
Buy now, pay later. Buy now, pay later is how 60%, according to surveys, of Generation Z is paying for things month to month. They're not credit cards. So this is not regulated by credit bureaus. It's not regulated with credit checks. It's basically anything from Amazon to Instacart, groceries, clothing, furniture. You can finance anything. It's BNPL. It's run by three main companies, Klarna, Affirm, and Afterpay. And essentially, you're 21, 22 years old. You can split a pizza into 4 payments. Sounds great, right? This is the modern tech economy.
Buy a pizza on credit?
Yes. You right now,
happening now?
You can go to Instacart right now and either through Klarna, Affirm, or Afterpay. Those are the 3 big actors. These are non-credit regulated bureaus.
Shut those fuckers down tomorrow. No, I'm serious.
Excuse the profanity from Tucker there, but his reaction was pretty real. Buy now, pay later. This is crazy stuff. But we've got to fix this. We've got to fix it in Trump's term. Because what's happening in New York with Mandami is real because the problems are real. Okay? How can you believe in capitalism when it doesn't work for you? That's why this show is about freedom, liberty, and prosperity. Prosperity. Well, we're not sharing the prosperity. And this has to do with antitrust. This has to do with our taxes. That we just have this disparity, this desperate impact. Now, I know I sound like a leftist, but if you're a young person, you got to have a way to have a life. We didn't have what the rich people had. Many of you grew up like I grew up. I grew up in Erie, Pennsylvania. We were poor, but we were happy. We could get what we needed if we worked hard, and we weren't jealous of the people that had more than us. We wanted to be them, right? We weren't jealous. We're like, how did they get that? I want to do what that guy did. That's not how it works today because the path isn't there to do what that guy did for a lot of people because we've destroyed our kids. I'm going to talk about social media in a couple stories here. We're handicapping them. We need to fix it fast, and we're not. But that's why this show is about protecting individual freedom, liberty, and prosperity. We need, I think the answer to this, the housing, the desperation that I can't pay my bills. My rent is $1,500, he says, when it used to be $600. And he can't seem to make enough money to get ahead. Well, guess what? If you and I if we encourage 10 million people to go work in the trades, they're going to have that good life. They're going to be able to buy a house. You know what? They're going to actually be able to help us build the frickin' houses. Charlie Kirk says we need to build 2 million homes. How do you do that without carpenters, plumbers, and HVAC people? Do you see how important our job, our quest to recruit 10 million people into the trades is? Everything depends on it. Charlie Kirk in that video basically says, if we don't get this done under Trump, we're going to have a revolution. And it's not going to be to put forward, a constitution like we currently have or live under, even though we don't have it really. It's going to be like Mandami. It's going to be socialist. It's going to be communist. And that plays right into the Chinese hands with AI, right? Everyone will have the same. Yeah, poverty is what they'll all have. We want them all to have the same prosperity. Charlie Kirk, in this video, I'm asking you, go to wethepeopleconvention.org, watch it, share it with everyone you know and learn from it, and then act to start talking to everyone about the trades. The waitress or waiter in your restaurant, the person at the grocery store, the person at the car wash, whoever you see that's underemployed, you got to start talking about, hey, you could make your life a lot better by joining a trade, and give them information about the trade groups in your areas where they can get training. It's our quest. Electing politicians is nothing compared to this. This is what we must do. You and I are going to be judged on how we succeed with this. Okay? All right, a couple more stories and then we'll wrap it up here. This is really disturbing, but not surprising. FIREAID, okay? FIREAID, state receives FIREAID money. after the fires in Los Angeles, they went and had all these concerts. Oh, big concerts. 2 FIREAID concerts with live streams were held at the Intuit Dome and the Kia Forum on January 30th in Los Angeles. An A-list of performers donated their time to raise money for fire victims, you were told. For fire victims. More than 100 million came through donations. The editors reached out of this story to the Annenberg Foundation, which was tasked with distributing the funds in April to find out how fire victims could receive direct financial help. The answer was the money was intended for nonprofits. No individuals could receive money, even though it was intended for fire victims. The nonprofits, as Maria Tells on Fox said on July 16th, seems ancillary, which was kind of a way of saying many nonprofits who got this $100 million had no relationship with fire victims. For example, in round 2 of grants handing out in early June, $25 million was given to various nonprofits, including the state of California's called Cal Volunteers. Cal Volunteers is the state office tasked with engaging Californians in service, volunteering, and civic action to tackle our state's most pressing challenges. The director of that group receives $141,000 in salary, and the group serves under the office of the governor. They didn't do anything to help with the fires, to rebuild them. They did nothing. $100 million. You people in California, wake up. Wake up. They burned your houses to the ground on purpose. And now they're not giving you permits to build them back. You know why? Because they're going to take that land from you. They already are. They just signed a thing to do low-income housing where your mansion used to be, because we commies don't want you to have that view of the ocean. No. We, the communists, want the people to have it. They're going to take it for themselves. Wow. Share that story. This was, I think, a little sad. Trump releasing the MLK files is a victory for truth and accountability. This happened this week. The Trump administration has now released the JFK files, the Epstein files, as poorly as that have been handled, and now the Martin Luther King Jr. files. And you know what? Nobody cared. You didn't hear anything about it. That was sad. I was sad that happened. It's a huge amount of documentation. I think they said there was 151,000 pages or something like that. Let's see here. Yeah, it's like 151,000 pages of documents were released. And I'm sure someone's going to look at it. He was a historian about Martin Luther King, but should have been in the news. Should have known that transparency is real. Promises made, promises kept. Trump said he would do it, and he did it. He deserves credit from that. You should make a note of that. I thought this was huge. Huge. We talk about it all the time. Trump doesn't just talk, he does. U.S. Olympic and Paralympic Committee will comply with Trump's ban on trans women and women's sports. This is huge. Remember, we're going to host the Olympics before Trump is out. And he says, no trannies, no trans in women's sports. The policy update doesn't use the word transgender, but it says it will comply with President Donald Trump's executive order on the matter. The U.S. Olympic and Paralympic Committee updated its policies to say it will comply with President Trump's executive order banning transgender women from competing in women's sports. The committee made the change in an updated athlete safety policy, which does not mention the word transgender in any of its 27 pages. However, the document dated June 18th, but posted quietly on their webpage Monday, includes language saying the committee will comply with Trump's order. The executive order 14201 is otherwise known as Trump's No Men in Women's Sports Executive Order. The U.S. Olympic and Paralympic Committee CEO Sarah Hirschland and President Gene Skiles acknowledged the update in a letter to the Team USA community, which was obtained by NBC News. Done. DEI, trans, woke, all gone. Not by talk, by action. This is important news, and I'm glad it happened. House GOP launches new select committee on January 6th attack. The effort, which will be led by Representative Barry Loudermilk, was stalled for months after disagreement around its jurisdiction, whatever the heck that means, right? The House Republicans are expected to create a long-awaited select subcommittee that will investigate the January 6th Capitol riot when lawmakers returned from the August recess in September, according to sources told The Hill on Wednesday. GOP Rep. Barry Loudermilk will lead the new select committee, which is expected to focus specifically on the riot and will be part of the House Judiciary Committee. Loudermilk also led the previous investigation into the Democrat-led select committee in the last Congress. House Speaker Mike Johnson first announced plans to establish the new committee in January, promising to deliver answers for Americans that were covered up by Democrats in the initial panel. The plans come after House Republicans filed a resolution on Wednesday to create the subcommittee. It was delayed over questions on how it would be funded and what it would be authorized to investigate, the outlet reported. However, Donald Trump demanded this. They did this because Trump said, you got to do this. And that's huge, because I got news for you folks. Again, Russia was a lie. Hillary Clinton's server was real. The impeachment by Mueller, the 2020 election was stolen, was a fraud. January 6th, baby. Just layer it on. The insurrection was from Nancy Pelosi and the corrupt Democrats. That's what this committee is going to find. I said to you many months ago, our job is to correct history. Our job is to make sure that for all time, everyone knows that Barack Obama was a corrupt criminal, that everyone under him was owned by China, and that they overthrew the sitting president of the United States. They need to be damned in the history books forevermore. And that's what this January 6th committee is going to help do. Correct the record, because what's there now is totally a fabrication, is totally false. And we want the truth to be in the records. This was good news that I got to share with you, because we got to celebrate our victories. Mike Lindell celebrates victory after appeal court voids $5 million award in election data dispute. A federal appeals court handed a victory Wednesday to Mike Lindell, ruling that the MyPillow founder doesn't have to pay a $5 million award to a software engineer who disputed data that Lindell claims that China interfered in the 2020 presidential election. That's still to come, folks. You're going to find out China did. True the Vote proved that China was involved with the 2020 presidential election. The 8th Circuit Court of Appeals ruled that an arbitration panel overstepped its authority in 2023 when it awarded $5 million to engineer Robert Zeldman of Las Vegas, who took Lindell up on his Prove Mike Wrong challenge. It is a great day for our country, Jubilant Lindell said in an interview. This is a big win. It opens the door to get rid of these electronic voting machines and get paper ballots and hand counted. Here, we're for that. Lindell, now this is from AP News, so you're going to see the prejudice here. Lindell, one of the country's most prominent propagators of false claims, that the 2020 election was a fraud, lost in a different case in Colorado last month. A jury ruled that Lindell defamed a former employee of a voting equipment company by accusing him of treason and awarded $2.3 million in damage. Lindell says he's appealing that and that he actually considered the verdict a victory because MyPillow, the company, was found not to be liable. Lindell's going to win that appeal as well. Okay? And he's not the most prominent propagator of false claims that the 2020 election was a fraud. He's one of the most prominent truth tellers in our nation, and he's an American hero. And what's a hero? A hero is someone who does it but doesn't talk. Elon Musk is a hero. Elon Musk didn't just say vote for Donald Trump. He spent 200 and some million of his money. He personally went to Pennsylvania and urged voters to vote for Trump. And Mike Lindell has put his entire company at risk, fighting for the truth that the elections in 2020 were stolen, and Mike Lindell is going to be proven correct. Congratulations, Mike. Congratulations. You're a true patriot, and we so much appreciate what you've done. And now, the last story, in our podcast today, which I related to earlier. Minister apologized to generations of UK children exposed to toxic online content. As I said in the thing about Charlie Kirk, we have severely damaged our children's mental and emotional and physical health by not protecting them from what we now know social media does to them. The technology, let's see, new measures to protect young people online come into force. Peter Kyle says politicians were too slow to act. The technology secretary has apologized to a generation of children who have been let down by government, failing to keep them safe from toxic online content. Peter Kyle said the length of time it has taken to bring in laws to keep children safe online has sold a whole generation of children downstream, and that politicians must find a way to act more swiftly in the face of rapid technological changes like AI. Kyle made them remarks in an interview with Mustnet, the parenting website, to mark the introduction of online safety measures in the UK for children that will put more responsibility on internet companies to protect them from harm. He said it was the biggest step forward for a young person's experience online since the internet was created. He added, I want to apologize to any kid who's over 13 who has not had any of these protections, to parents who have strived and failed to keep their kids free from all this content because we have let them down. Kyle said it cannot be allowed to happen again, that urgent safety measures made necessary by technological advances should not take 7 years to come into force. He said a whole generation of children has been exposed to torrid, toxic material because of the failure of politicians. As you know, I have been promoting this forever on this podcast. A child should have no smartphone and no access to TikTok, Instagram, whatever, any social media until they're age 16. The science proves it. Go to WeThePeopleConvention.org, search on Dr. Haidt, H-A-I-D-T. You will find a video with Jordan Peterson that just came out that is unbelievable. That explains the science, the scientific proof of what social media intentionally does to your brain, even as an adult, let alone as a child. This has been a crime against our children that we haven't protected them. I spoke to the Speaker of the House in Ohio personally about getting a bill passed in Ohio, and I'm trying to get it on his agenda for this fall to put a law in that bans the use of social media by children who are not at least age 16. They can have a flip phone. They can call and talk to their friends. They can even text them, but they can't share social media images and the things that destroy them. Get your kids a flip phone. They don't need a smartphone. They're cheaper. They're like $18 a month. This is a crisis. This is what Charlie Kirk is talking about. This is what you and I need to act on in your state. So share that article as well, because the Brits are waking up. They're figuring it out. We got to protect our kids, and we're not. All right, so I'm going to wrap up the podcast for this week. Please tell people about it. And if I made a mistake or I didn't do a story you felt I should have done, write to me at info@wethepeopleconvention.org. But share, use our podcast chapters player that comes out on Sunday. I usually post this around noon, 1 o'clock on Saturday. And then on Sunday, our chapters player is there, where you can just look at the stories, click on the one you didn't know about. It'll start playing from there forward, and it'll give you a link that you can send to people. That's the key. We need to act in defense of our individual freedom, liberty, and prosperity. What are we doing? We're recruiting kids and underemployed people to join the trades. What are we doing? We're calling our senators and our congressmen. We're confronting them at their town hall meetings in our home districts while they're on recess and saying, be on recess and let Trump appoint all of his appointees with recess appointments this month of August. We got to force them to do that. You got to confront them, right? You've got to share the news about Russia. The evidence, the Hemingway video that I played at the beginning of the podcast. You can go to our podcast page and just use a link there that'll take you to the video on a website that you can share with everybody that explains it all. They really committed these crimes. They overthrew the sitting president of the United States by intentionally fabricating false intelligence and propagating it to the media, and the media was complicit. And that's why they're telling you there's nothing to see here, because it's Russia, Russia again. Oh, believe me, what she's saying, you don't want to see that on CNN. Your job is to do those things. On our podcast page, we list all the stories, we list links to those stories, and below it, we have this week's action items. The things I just mentioned to you are going to be there so you can share them with others. Freedom and liberty are not free. Prosperity is not guaranteed. You have to fight for it. The people who watch this podcast know that and do that. You have a good week this week. Fight for your freedom and liberty and prosperity. God willing, we'll be back together again next week. I greatly appreciate your taking your time to be here with me. And I hope to hear from you at info@wethepeopleconvention.org about what you found out from your school board and what you found out from the trade groups in your area. But I just can't thank you enough for mostly being American. Not just for watching our podcast or supporting our organization. I want to thank you for being an American, for fighting for your freedom, liberty, and prosperity. Because it's all of us together that allows any of us to have those things. We have done so much in the last 16 years, and we ain't done yet. But we're at war with China, and it's as serious as the war in World War II. And we better damn well win this AI race, or none of us are going to have freedom or liberty or prosperity. Mark my words. God bless you all, and God has already blessed America. You've been listening to the We the People Convention News and Opinion Podcast. My name is Tom Zawistowski, and I thank you for being with us. Have a good week.
Can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fights, oh, the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets rattling, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land under the frame? right here in